All right, I believe I have started recording Zoom. This is Philosophy PHI 304, Culver-Stockton College. My name is Matthew Hunt. Our session today, our class is about sexual intimacy and marriage. So what are some of the moral and ethical issues that surround sexual intimacy and marriage?
Well, I can start. There's always that part of sexual abuse that can always be a factor in marriage and just sexual intimacy. It can really change a person's perception of what they want when it comes to relationships. So I think just the violent side of intimacy can really be an ethical issue.
So sexual violence and abuse.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a particular angle of that you're thinking of when we talk about those things?
I mean, sexual abuse, it can go multiple angles. There can be molestation, there can be rape. I mean, I'll just be completely honest. I've gone through it myself with I was 5 and 16 when those happened, but really it really has changed my perception on sexual relationships and just relationships in general. So
Okay. So you're saying it is a factor.
for sure.
And if you read the Boss book, it's a factor for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Allie. Cheating? Cheating. They get into this on the documentary too. It's pretty interesting because the way different people on there approach it. Cheating. Okay. Abuse, violence, cheating. What else? Sure. Sure. Same-sex marriage. Okay. What's that? Premarital sex.
I didn't like how this all was in a notebook for me. Yeah, I don't like. I wrote my essay this one, and I was trying to I felt like it was harder because I kept switching back when I wrote my essay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Why isn't it in our book?
Oh, because they're fun suckers, and it was in every other single edition, and then when they came out with the 7th edition, it was actually a real cluster. You know what? Because I showed up to class one time, and nobody told me that they switched to the 7th edition, so I didn't have a 7th edition. And I had promoted that you need to get the 6th edition, which most of my students had, but then I might be getting some of my details wrong, but anyway, there were like 2 classes where everything I planned for, they did the opposite. And then I discovered that in the 7th edition, not only did they take out like one of my students' favorite chapters, because really, honestly, when it comes to sexual intimacy and marriage, that's one that affects almost all of us. And even if it doesn't, we want it to, right? It's one of the most important ones for us to deal with. And they took out the entire chapter. So then I went and had PDFs made of it. So that's, I mean, unless you wanted to buy the 6th edition.
I didn't care. It's just part of the
Yeah, I should actually tell people, you might be able to get the 6th edition real cheap, And so it might be worth it to you if you want to buy the sixth, fifth, third, fourth. I mean, I think it's in all the other early editions. So I should tell people that they can do that, but I don't know why they took it out. I really don't. But yeah, premarital sex, that's one. And actually we're gonna go over in a little bit what the Bible has to say about sex and marriage, because I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, and I was taught by pastors and teachers, that the Bible says this, this, and this. And when I actually became an adult and started studying for myself, I'm like, oh, well, I can't actually find anywhere where it says that. So we're actually going to go through what the Bible actually says about sex and marriage. I'm going to show you what the Bible says, and I'm going to let you draw your own conclusions. They didn't put the word homosexual in the Bible until 1946. Yeah, I actually, now, you can get a good grade in this class by believing opposite than me. Like I've told you countless times, I've given people very, very high grades, including 100% on papers that I disagreed with 100%, but they were well written. They use logic, they use reason, they follow the directions. But I definitely, as a pastor at a church that's open and affirming, and I do gay weddings, then, and a lot of people in my congregation are gay, I want them to feel a sense of I want them to feel a sense of welcome, and I want them to be able to articulate why their sexual orientation is not a disgrace to God or a sin. Now, obviously, not everybody agrees with me. We were even blessed to have picketers one time, but I've done 3 or 4, maybe 3, maybe 4 workshops called a Better Biblical View of Homosexuality and Why It's Not a Sin. So, and we actually did it as a fundraiser for the Gay Straight Alliance at the Quincy High School, and it was really well attended. We always had a really good turnout. So I'm going to show you some of the slides from that tonight. Not all of them. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it took probably an hour and a half or so to go through it, and we don't have time for that. But I did want to go through the part of that presentation where it talks about what the Bible actually has to say about sex and marriage, because a lot of times people do use the Bible, or at least they think they're using the Bible to justify their positions on sex and marriage. And I just think that what we've traditionally been taught and what's actually in the Bible are 2 different things. And I just want people to be aware of that and to make their own conclusions, as opposed to just taking what we've been taught at face value and thinking that, somehow, even if it doesn't make sense, then it's the right thing. So, and if you don't like what I'm teaching, and if you don't accept it, that's all right. That's up to you. But it's up to you to make your own conclusions. I'm just gonna give you the information, and you can reject it, or you can accept it, or you can take bits and pieces of it, whatever works for you. Like I'm not gonna think any less of you if you're like, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. So it's like, well, you don't have to like it. Here's what I'm gonna present. And if you don't like it, that's up to you to make that decision. All right, so we've got some good ones. We've got cheating, premarital sex, same-sex marriage, sexual violence and abuse as ethical issues surrounding sex and marriage. What are there any other ones? What are some other issues that might come up? Okay, prostitution. Okay, what else? Arranged marriage. It does happen, right? Okay, what else? Age difference. Okay. What else? What's that? Contraception. Okay. If you're Catholic, it is, right? Yeah. When back when I was in junior college, my cousin, who was a year younger than me, his girlfriend got pregnant, and I said, Mike, don't you know how to keep that from happening? And he said, well, my girlfriend's Catholic, she doesn't believe in it. I wanted to say, I'm pretty sure that they don't believe in premarital sex either. So if you're gonna break one, you might as well break the other one, right? But anyway, he has like 1 billion kids now, so it's all water under the bridge. It worked out. Okay, so contraception, prostitution, premarital sex, same-sex marriage, cheating. What else? What's that? Okay. Should we put pornography down? Is that one? Okay. Okay, pornography. Social media. Social media. What are you thinking with that? That's pretty general.
OnlyFans, people sex.
Say that again.
OnlyFans and premium Snapchats, people sexting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anything else? It's a pretty good list. Start with. I can't really think of any more. So that's at least a good place for us to start. I guess I would start off with how would you define the purpose of sex? What's the purpose of sex? Jalen? What's that? The purpose of sex is to have babies. What really influential and large religious organization would agree with you? What's that? Mormons might. I don't know.
I feel like Catholics and regular people are Christians.
Yeah.
Like regular religion.
Yeah.
Not like regular people I live in, regular like religion.
In Catholicism, the only legitimate reason to have sex is procreation. So that's actually what if you go to Catholic school, you go through whatever catechism or whatever the Catholics offer, that's what they'll teach, is that there's only one reason to have sex, and that is procreation. So Would this group agree with that, though? Is that the purpose?
I think that's the main purpose.
You think that's the main purpose?
Like.
Do- How
like
often,
the intended main purpose.
how often do you think that if that's the main purpose,
I know that's
how
not
many
the main
people,
purpose for a
how
lot.
many people avoid the main purpose with
A
great
lot.
fervor?
Okay, I have something.
Allie's got something.
I feel like the main purpose of having sex is probably to give you a deeper connection with your partner.
Okay. A deeper connection with your partner.
You may already have the emotional connection, but I feel like with sex, it gives you a more physical connection.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How many people would agree with that? Is at least one of the purposes of sex a deeper connection with your sexual partner? So Allie, we're getting a lot of raised hands and heads shaking yes on that. So that seems to, people seem to be agreeable to that. Are there any other reasons or purposes for sex?
Like, a lot of people have different reasons for having sex.
What are the different reasons?
I know somebody who, like, I kind of had a heart with her, because she, like, went to this phase and she was, like, going through, like, family stuff, and she kind of used that as, like, a coping thing. So, like,
Oh, yeah.
Some people, like, they use it as an escape, or like an emotional, like, kind of like ours was, like, an emotional attachment, but not necessarily in the way it should be.
Okay, so sometimes sex can be an escape. Okay, I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm sure that it gets used that way sometimes. Jalen. Oh, so in where prostitution is legal, the purpose of sex is to make money. Okay, is that a legitimate business and a legitimate means of having sex? So you would say it is. Would anybody disagree? Does anybody think that prostitution, assuming that everything is consensual, you know, I think that we would, but do you think that is prostitution moral or immoral? Having sex for money. What's that? Pornography? You could make an argument that's exactly what pornography is, right? Yeah. Does it, I will say, in this class, I've taught a lot of classes, and very few people have very much of a problem with prostitution, like in terms of its moral culpability. Like I just haven't had a lot of students say, no, that is wrong and that's immoral. I just, I'm not saying I don't have students that believe that. It's just nobody's out there like carrying the prostitution is immoral flag,
I mean, if that's how you get your family's income, then so be it. That's fine.
Allie, if you couldn't hear her, she said that if that's how you make money for your family and support your family, then she's saying that we have to respect that. What's that now? Right. Right. Would anybody disagree? Would anybody argue that prostitution is immoral? What's that?
What happens in Vegas?
What happens in Vegas? Were you born there? Well,
I think it's one of those things, like, if it's more fun, like, if you want to do it, like, it's not fun, like, if you don't want to do it, then you don't need to really go to your opinion or do it, but it's kind of,
okay. So what kind of an ethical framework would you make that argument that you should pursue whatever is in your own best interest? Okay. Yeah, I think that would fit pretty well. What do you all think? Would ethical egoism fit pretty well? Yeah. Yeah, the freedom to choose what's right for you, right? Yeah, very good, Anthony. So yeah, I think both of those fit pretty well. What about, we brought up pornography. Some people do argue. We have some feminists argue that pornography is demeaning to women, and that a lot of pornography, the goal is not just sex, but it's also to demean women or denigrate them, or to subject them to violence and hostility, or to dominate a person. I don't think that all pornography necessarily does that, but there are those that state that a lot of pornography does do that. So, and then you have other feminists that say that's how people support their families, and that as long as it's consensual, then there's nothing wrong with that. So you do have feminists on both sides making claims. So what do you think, Jalen? What's that? So you're saying that sometimes it's men being dominated by women, sometimes it's men dominating men, and okay, Anthony?
I think that the general problem that the feminists might have with pornography is like the viewership that might see like men dominating women, and then tie that into that, how some people cannot make the separation between pornography and reality, and to where that men may view women in that way as they view them in pornography, if that makes sense. That that certain individuals may view women as just, I don't want to say like just sex, but just that, like fantasy that pornography may
Okay.
portray, I guess, is I think what the main issue is.
Okay. Allie, did you hear what Anthony said?
A little bit. It was a little muffled, but what did he say?
How would you sum that up?
I guess you could say the portrayal of women in pornography is different than how women actually are, I guess, in reality.
Okay, so he's saying that sometimes there might be the concern, Allie, that the portrayal of women in pornography, that someone might not realize that this is fake, and that they might confuse that with reality.
Okay.
And what happens there. Okay. So what do you think in general? Is pornography moral or immoral? Does it fall under the same category as prostitution?
kind of saying it's not the one. All the different, like, basically the same thing, all the more so.
Okay, just one ends up on videotape or camera. Okay. Okay. All right, what about what about marriage? What is the purpose of marriage? Well, you know what? Before we get to what the purpose of marriage is, let's talk a little bit more about the purpose of sex, because I would say, we've said that the purpose of sex is children and a deeper connection with your partner. But I think there's one that we haven't said that's a pretty obvious one that a lot of people might bring up. What do you think that might be? That's right. Might be pleasure. What ethical framework might you use to make that argument?
Hedonism.
Yeah, hedonism. Because with hedonism, pleasure is the only thing that matters, right? So pleasure is one. Is pleasure, is that a legitimate enough purpose for sex? Or does it have to have more? Does it have to have procreation? Does it have to have a deeper connection? Or is pleasure a valid enough reason to engage in sexual intercourse? More? More, Anthony?
I personally believe that it should be more, but I can see why others can see that. But I mean, you can make the same argument with like why we do anything. I guess like, I brush my teeth in the morning because it makes me feel good when my teeth are done. I guess it makes other individuals feel good that they have like the touch of another person or sexual
Okay.
intimacy with somebody else.
Okay, so you're saying that you think it should be more, but it could just be a personal preference. Okay, all right, Shelby? Okay, so you think that it should be more, say again why you think it should be more? Right? There's a what? Okay, all right, because when you look at all the issues around it, that it's complicated enough that you think that it should be more. Okay. Okay. What ethical framework would you make to argue that pleasure alone isn't enough? Or if you think pleasure is enough, what ethical framework would you use to argue that? So either way, pleasure is not enough, you need more, or pleasure is enough. What ethical frameworks would you use?
Or you need more than
Deontological, which there's a bunch. So which ones? Feel free to look at your sheets if you want. Because I would say in most of the classes, people wanted or desired more, but most people, I would say that the majority of the classes, not all of them, but the majority of the classes would have said, we want more, but we think pleasure alone is enough. But I think you can make an argument, a legitimate argument either way.
Sex is a basic human desire, so I do think pleasure is justified. Doesn't matter what you want, it matters about what it is. It's just pleasure for at least one person in it. At least in college.
So you're saying sex is a basic natural desire. So what ethical framework would you use to argue that pleasure is enough?
Natural law.
Natural law theory. Very good. Very good.
Depends a lot on, like, age, like, the different generations, how they look at this, like, views on it, on how is that in college, you said in college. and in that.
I don't know. Have you ever been to, you know those independent living facilities? They're like right before you go into the nursing home.
Oh, yeah, them old people, man.
Yeah, I mean, you think those people are college age, you know? And I mean, they're getting it on all the time. So, I mean, they might have dementia, but they know what they want, right?
Either not to remember or not to forget.
That's right. A night to remember or a night to forget. Oh, yeah.
I feel like it should be more because if you're just going for a pleasure, then it could be easy to be done with anyone, you know. But like if you're gonna with it for more and like to find like that deeper connection with somebody deeper just with one person that you love and like you want to do that with instead, like, you know, your husband would, I mean, you do like when you're married, stuff like do it for pleasure, but like at first, like you want to make that connection with them.
Okay. What,
I
I
agree with
agree
that.
that you don't, I agree with you. Like when you're doing things like you don't really, like, you don't care if you really care about the person, you just do it. Like that's kind of one of those coping things, like I'm still feel like this is like,
okay.
I agree.
I have to disagree with that, because, you could do anything and get a deeper connection with the person you're interested in, but sex will, I won't say always, because there's some extradition counter that, but it'll most likely give you pleasure, regardless of what you're doing in bed. You will get pleasure from it, but if you want a deeper connection, you could go on a date, you could take them out to eat, cook. There's a lot of things you can do to be intimate other than sex.
It's like I was saying, when you're getting, it's more like a physical connection, than it is emotional.
You're saying holding them down.
But we did just sort of agree, I thought, that using libertarianism and ethical egoism, that prostitution was not immoral. Well, if you make that argument, do you think that the purpose of, with prostitution, are they trying to have a deeper connection with one another? Or do you think it's more about the physical pleasure that is derived or the physical touch?
I thought we talked talking about them, like, making money for them. It's not more about like physical. It's not about them getting the pleasure, it's them like having to do it and making money for their family.
So the money thing, but that would only be for one of the two people. For the person paying the money.
I mean, I think like the person seeking it, like paying money, is probably like a pleasure thing. But
Yeah,
not a meaningful, and like not meaningful in time.
okay. Anthony?
I still think it's more to like have sex just for pleasure, like just because like my own personal feelings or like set aside. I usually think it's more to have sex for pleasure. If two people just want to have sex, just have sex. I mean, like that's your choice. Like you can do that. Like you think it's more, but I mean, well, just like answer that question. I do think it's
Okay, so Anthony, you say you do think that it's moral, even if it's just for pleasure. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we did good there. How about the purpose of marriage? we've got arranged marriages, we've got Western, civilization marriages. What is the purpose of marriage?
Find something for themselves.
Find someone that you want to spend your life with.
Different cultures do different ways, but for the arranged marriage, it's like maybe you're not personally finding someone that wants to leave your family to kind of find that person too. And
Okay.
I don't agree in like arranged marriage, and I'll feel like that's my meaning to decide, but like marriage, I always like it. Yeah, finding like the best family you want to live the rest of your life with and start a family with, and
So find someone that you want to grow into a deeper relationship with and to share things like children and
grow up.
and see your lives come together.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other purposes of marriage besides that? Anthony?
I mean, when I think of historically, like arranged marriages, I think of like political, arranged marriages,
Political?
or when I think of arranged marriages, I think of like trade-off, like, somebody arranging like their daughter to be married into like a good family, like
Right.
a rich family to have like, a better life for their child.
Okay.
Like I think arranged marriage is moral in that sense. And like transition now, like we don't really have like political arranged marriages anymore, but, even like, I think arranged marriage is moral just because certain individuals do it for a reason. I feel like it's not this.
I feel like some of your children could choose to live in their feeling like if my dad tried to tell me who to marry, I'd probably do it. I mean, I wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Which I know like back then they didn't have a choice, but they had a, I'm just saying like.
Well, I'll tell you,
you get to choose things.
in arranged marriages, I would say parents usually have a much stronger influence over who somebody marries than what we in the Western world are used to. I mean, like, that probably is just the case. Jalen? I'm having a terrible with that mask. If you want to just put it down underneath your nose or something, maybe I can hear you a little bit better.
Growing up, my mom and my friends and father, my dad, we grew up together, and so always like, it's just like how always built this together. Oh, that was just we should go together. And then I kind of overheard a conversation like, oh yeah, kind of this big and married, so they don't worry about anything like that.
Oh, okay. So you kind of tasted of a little somebody trying to arrange who you would or influence who you would date or potentially marry. Okay. Okay. Didn't work out.
I like the together.
Well, Anthony?
I think also a difference in like culture, where like here in the Western world, in the United States, like once you're 18, you can be like on your own and not have to like, I guess, listen to your parents. But I guess like women in, I don't want to say old cultures or Eastern cultures, but I guess you could say to a sense, women are below men, I guess, on like a social ladder sense. So we're here in America, like if you don't want to listen to your parents when you're 18, you can move out, you can live your life, you can be who you want.
Right.
Whereas I guess the fear of violence could be a deafening way that arranged marriage is just the thing I have to accept. Where like if I don't go into this arranged marriage, I could be harmed, sort of thing, if I were to be a woman.
Oh, yeah. So you're saying in some cases, arranged marriages are maybe in a person's best interest because it's a patriarchal society, and they might have the fear of being harmed if they aren't with a man that has means or the ability to protect them from harm. Okay. I will say that when it comes to arranged marriages, there's a lot of pressure. It's not just disappointing your parents, because my son was probably a nightmare scenario for a doctor in Keokuk an Indian from India, and you know, they're not Catholic, they're not Christian, they're not American. I mean, they are American because they live in America. Very valued members of the community, and you know, Hindu. So here comes my atheist Protestant son that gets in trouble all the time, and he starts to date one of their daughters, and they of course put the kibosh on that immediately, which you know means that they dated secretly for 4 years. But they ended up breaking up. Actually, my son broke up because after, when he went to college, he knew that if they stayed together and she chose him, she would most likely lose all of her inheritance, and she would most likely be disowned from her family. Now, I can't say definitively all that was going to happen, but something along those lines, that if she chose to be with my son, she'd be giving up a lot. And so I don't know what her life is going to entail at this point, but I know that they broke up for that very reason. So there's just a lot of pressure to do that.
I think autism is still getting married for this thing.
Get married for kids or to have kids?
Like, because, yeah.
Oh, because of the kids? Yeah. Yeah, that could be. Totally.
A more recent problem, people get married for citizenship.
Ooh, citizen. I actually have a friend that I'm seeing, and she dated a guy from the UK, and he wanted to get married so that he could be a citizen. So, yeah. What's that? Get married for the green card. That's right. That's right. All right. How about premarital sex? Is premarital sex moral or immoral?
I have something whenever they're done.
Allie, we got time for you. You go ahead and share.
I think it's super important to have, oh, hello, turn me around. I'll add my video then. I think it's super important to have premarital sex because I feel like you need to know that connection with your partner before you go further into the relationship. Because listen, I'll be straight up, if the sex isn't good and you're going to be stuck with them for the rest of your life, what is the absolute point? Because you're in it for pleasure, you're in it to have kids, and it's for physical connection. And I think you need all three of those. So I think it's super important to have sex before marriage to figure out, is my partner good in bed, or should I move on to a different person who will please me the way I want them to? Thank
Okay.
you.
And what ethical framework would you use to make that argument?
Let's see. Let me pull, there it is. This thing. I think it'd be ethical egoism, because you have to do what's in your own self-interest. So
Can you all hear that?
I
Okay.
just think it's ethical egoism.
I
'cause
think that one's probably the most solid one out of that.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you all think? Is premarital sex moral or immoral? You agree with Allie? I'm asking what you all believe. Don't worry about what other people believe. I'm asking you to think through these things for yourself. Peyton agrees. Shelby, you agree? Jalen, agree? Charlie? Anthony? Webb, what do you think?
I agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
I know. We got Webb to say something. Yes. No, you're good, buddy. You're good. All right. Let's see. What about contraception? If you're a good Catholic, you're not supposed to use it. Is there a moral issue surrounding using conception? Jalen? It promotes what? Okay. So you're saying that the Catholics are afraid that it would promote premarital sex and therefore you shouldn't do it. Okay. Anybody else have a problem with a moral problem with conception or contraception? Conception. I'll bet some of you have a problem with conception, like you're not ready for it or don't want it right now.
I just feel like it's not enough to teach younger students about it. You have to be willing to offer contraception to those that are already active.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any type of prevention.
But birth control isn't just about preventing sex, it also does a lot for your body, like there's one acne helps with period control. You know, it's not just for one thing only, there's multiple purposes that come with it.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's why a lot of us go put on when we're 16 or 17, because that's when we're starting our period, or that's when, you know, with impurity and acne is really bad, so like it does. I mean, it helps out a lot. I had friends who said it all it when she was really young, because she was really good at the shop. That's why a lot of girls get on this, because not necessarily having sex because of.
Okay.
Which is why parents should be educated more on it at a younger age, because they need to know that type of thing. I feel like some people put such a bad rap on it. Like, you know, they go down there on like that aspect of what it was, not just like putting having sex and you on it, because if you just like make it down so bad, they're not gonna. I feel like it's kind of when you kind of like focus on the bad and only used for that to the public. And I feel like in school, we really, if we can talk about it, really, for like after that.
Okay. Jalen?
Maybe not even just younger girls, but guys as well, because not all of them are women, because you don't have daughters, and maybe the mother isn't always around. And he's gonna be the one that is gonna have to help them through it. But if they don't know anything about it, how are they supposed to help them through it? Yeah, I want to do that. Mine, that's like, into that kind of, like, me get on the control and all that, because like my dad had really into it. Like, I haven't really good. Well, the same way we offer. Yeah. He's literally like, I don't know. He's like, what is that? So awkward. And also, what's it called? Fine. I'll go to the store myself. Yeah. Give me a little extra money for chocolate and or
For Starbucks? Yeah.
I think that's a good point too, like not just girls and everything, but in general.
Sure. Sure.
Overall, like, a lot of people can educate girls, oh, don't get raped, oh, don't go outside like this, because you're going to get, just with anything sexual in general, it needs to be boys too, because they need to know, hey, I shouldn't do this, not, oh, if you're doing this, like, I can go and do this for because she's just like this, or she's just like this, or I can do this because she's just this way, and these two boys are going to on sex topics as well.
Yeah. Anthony, did you have something you wanted to share? I thought maybe your hand was up a while ago.
No, not really.
Okay.
I wanted to bring up a topic, about contraception versus the pill and then the, like, hiding the arm.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
But I just don't know anything about it, and I was gonna ask if anybody knew anything different about the pill.
I mean, it kind of just depends on how your body, like what your body type is and how you're going to react to it. So personally, my mom didn't really use the bar because she was like, I'm also very tiny. I'm 5'3" and I weigh 105 pounds. So the bar being put in my body, you know, could have a lot of effects on me and not in the way it could put on like a ton of weight, or it could just mess up my like hormone balance really bad. Yeah. So for me personally, it's just easier to be on the pills, and you know, it's just
Everybody's like body reacts different. Like, I don't remember to take pills, so I'm on the shot, so I'm only like 3 months, so like, it really, it's like everybody reacts different. The pills also made me super sick, so. I would say like the more and more concentrate, like higher concentrate over drug function, you can get a little.
Well, you also have to take into fact like IUDs too, and like when the birth control is inserted into so you know there's different things, but it's really just what you prefer and how your body reacts to it, and you know what you feel more comfortable doing at the same time. But definitely think about it, figure out, like I've done different types of birth control like pill forms because you know, you have the generic kind and you have the cherry kind. So I always, you know, my body reacts better to the generic kind versus the actual cherry kind. And it's not just affecting like a hormone imbalance, it's also affecting the acne on the face and as well as the periods too. So there's a lot more that you have to take into consideration with birth control because, you know, it's not just relying on, you know, your reproductive system, but it's also relying on, you know, how your body can react to acne and, you know, periods and stuff like that. So,
I can see that like because I had more control with my body. I don't know why that for some reason. But like the bar one, it gave me 58 days period straight. So like
How many?
58 days.
Oh,
And my period.
wow.
I was really like anemic and
That sounds awful.
yeah, it was, and especially during like sports seasons too, because I'm like doing around news of I'm losing like weight. It was a whole disaster, but like I can see on the effects of like how it would like react to allowing to things like that. Like different. I've had negative experiences with it, so like I think that's another thing is that we just didn't go and then like, oh, it's okay, it's like it doesn't work. It's a big deal.
I feel like they should also be educated that it's okay. Like, sometimes girls like when they're on birth control and like sometimes their periods will stop altogether, like they won't get periods anymore. Sometimes they're very light, sometimes they're very heavy for the first couple of days. So I feel like they should be educated on the side effects that come with it too. And I feel like the parents should be educating them on that, and I feel like health teachers should also, you know, educate them on that, or there should be somebody in the school system that, you know, students are closer that they can talk to them about, you know, certain things, because, you know, people that are grown up in single households like that don't have moms and stepmoms or something like that, and it's really uncomfortable to talk to your dad about that. Like, I don't want to talk to my dad about my kids because he's gonna look at me and be like, I don't know, I don't care. So, you know, they don't want to deal with that. So, you know, I feel like there's a lot more people should be educated.
Thank you, Peyton. Jalen?
I know there's more research on it and like better methods, but male contraception.
Male contraceptives?
Why would a bullet vest and get shot? Just waiting on the gun.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Contraceptives should not be just the female's responsibility, right?
I know sometimes I get nice stuff that just get on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so weird. I feel like I think people like this contraceptive for males because like ours is like a multi-purpose of why we use it. And I'm not just speaking for myself, I don't know about anybody else, but mine's like for my kids, and acne, they don't have periods. I know they have acne, but they don't have periods, so I'm just wondering how much it would really affect their body if we took, yeah, how their hormones would be affected if we took something like that.
Okay. All right. One thing we have talked about quite a bit. We haven't talked about same-sex marriage though. Very much, at least. Have we talked about? Did we talk about that? No. So, what do you think? Is same-sex marriage? And I guess we would just sort of put all of the non-heterosexual groups in this category for our purposes. But is there a problem? Is that moral or immoral?
Nowadays, it's more moral than it was back then. And at the same time, that's why to take into consideration, religions and stuff like that. Me personally, I don't think.
In this class, you don't
want-
have to take into
Yeah.
consideration religion at all. Like, if you want to, you can. If you want to, you can.
I'm Catholic, I serve in Catholic household. I went to church every Sunday. I had PSR, which is a private school religion. I went to those every Wednesday night, like, so growing up in that type of household, like, not saying that my parents are, or my family is against, same-sex marriage, not saying that at all, like, for it, do what you do, as long as it doesn't affect us in any way, if it doesn't, you do what makes you happy, you can't help who you fall in love with, love is love. Sometimes some of us don't even expect who we fall in love with, I didn't expect to be dating, or I'm being from South America, but I am, it's really, great, it's just unexpected, and, you just do what makes you happy.
Okay, Jalen?
I'm just like for conviction, advocate for, not necessarily advocate for, if you're gay, you can be proud, not to love you.
Yep.
I kind of got in the divine command theory, where, what God says is moral.
Right. What God says is moral, divine command theory.
But there are places in the Bible that say God designed protected intimacy, especially within the context of marriage between one man and woman. Homosexuality is primarily in the Bible in 1946. I'm kind of looking at this, but when they placed that in the Bible, they were, and that's essentially lying, because they're saying that homosexuality is hell, and it's not in the Bible.
Well,
God's not about that.
there are 6 clobber pat. That's what I call them. It's not just me, but
Yeah.
they're called clobber passages, and that's where like they just hammer on homosexuality, and they are there. I mean, I don't want us to diminish them. I want us, as a student of the Bible, they are there. Now, there are other things in the Bible. We're going to get to that more, so I don't want to get into that right now. But those passages, there are 6 specific passages that are in the Bible, and they do.
Homosexuality is unnatural. Natural between them and nature. It's like something you talk to them.
Yeah.
It's very common for two females to make the life, even
So you're using natural law theory for that? Yeah.
they make their life, it's not in front
Right.
of them, are two
My uncle had a pig farm, and I saw two female pigs. I guess they were getting it on. Like there wasn't any equipment there, but the one was trying like crazy, for a long time. So I mean, it does happen, right? What's that? Yeah, yeah. Anthony, you had something you wanted to share.
I was just gonna share like a unique experience. Like my mom, like she doesn't really like care. Oh, sorry, like I'm not gay, but she like she like really doesn't care about like same-sex marriage, but for her, like personally for me, so like I play volleyball, like a huge like culture around Colorado is that like the good volleyball players are gay. Like that's just like the kind of
Okay.
weird culture around it
All right.
in Colorado. That's just the West Coast. It's just a West Coast.
Is that true?
That is the culture. And
Okay.
she always said things to me like growing up, just like you better not be gay, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like it was more of like a pride thing for her. Well, because like I'm the only son, so she like wants to have that. I don't know, like she feels like she's being robbed of the experience of having like a daughter-in-law if I were to like marry a man or something. But like I don't know, it's like a weird pride thing because she's not religious at all. She's atheist, but as just like an alternative look into same-sex marriage, that for some parents it may be that they don't want that for their said father or son or daughter. I mean,
Yeah, there's different levels of homophobia out there. I mean, and not all of them are like over the top, but there are attitudes. It's like, it's like, I don't know. Have you ever watched it? It is a bottom feeder comedy called 2.5 Men. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
It's not highbrow. It's not super great like Big Bang Theory is. It's like low level. It is entertaining, but they do have some very subtle. It's like nobody's in that show is gonna like come out and say being gay is wrong. And I'm pretty sure even the characters, if you ask them, they're like, whatever, we don't care. But they make negative comments about gay people periodically, and it's more passive, but those kinds of attitudes do come out, and people do have those those opinions, and sometimes they're just hard for them to get past. And I'm even friends with people. One of my best friends grew up in extremely racist and anti-gay home. And since we've been friends, we're like really close friends for the past few years, it's amazing at how far he's come. Because talking to me, I don't tell him what to believe. I just share what I do and what I believe and my rationale. And he has come light years in a few years. Now, does he still have some of those attitudes? Yeah, he does. He does, but he's so much better than what he used to be. So, I just try to encourage him and support him what I can. So, we're not going to probably eliminate, anti-gay and and racist attitudes, but we can actually make a difference though. Yep.
I just don't agree with people that are like, oh, you have not the same beliefs as me, I will not be your friend. Like, before I say that, like, and put that out there, like, you can have any belief you want, and you can be my best friend, and I will never stop you. But like, some people say, like, oh, we don't have the same beliefs, you can be friends. That is not like that. Yeah.
That is a very good point, Mackenzie, because I don't. Yeah.
Like,
He.
you go to some, we're not friends, and you go to buy. I'm saying you go for it.
Like people pushing on the thing like, oh, you like Trump or talking or being anymore. Like you go to some house, you better not come anyone from the country or something like that. I don't, show it off to anybody too. I very because one, it's not anybody else's business except mine. It's just me and the whole this I each other's viewpoints. It's really not that
Well,
difficult. But there's also some people should be more open to people's points of view. Like if you're gonna, if you don't believe in the same thing, I'm not gonna say to you like, oh, you're wrong. 'Cause that's false.
I'll
That's their
listen to
opinion.
your views, and
Yeah.
I can tell you my views because of yours, and I won't tell you if yours are wrong.
And at the end of the day, it's just an agree to disagree and no harm, no foul. You got to hear somebody else's points of views and, maybe that educated you more on certain things and somebody else got your viewpoints and I think things have been stopped the way out of hand and it's kind of different.
I just don't believe the guidance or like I think it's awesome when you have somebody that you don't live with at all and still be like that's fine.
well, I've had two, if you knew me personally, like I despised everything about Donald Trump. Like, I mean, literally everything. But my buddy Greg, guess who he voted for? But we had the type of friendship where we could actually talk about it because he knew I wasn't trying to change his position. He never tried to change my position, and he also never denigrated my beliefs.
I feel like that's
And you shouldn't be like, just because I believe there's somebody that doesn't mean that I should be labeled a racist or a homophobic or anything like that, because if you know me personally, you know that I'm not any of those things.
Yeah.
Point blank, period.
Yeah.
So, it sucks that, people that you've been like really good friends with or something like that, and, to get into like a civil argument about, okay, here's each other's viewpoints, and be like, oh, who did you vote for? And oh, well, I voted for Trump, and it just, it does.
Thank you, Peyton. Jalen? You can. That's okay. Okay.
So, coming from a person in my background, it's a little bit different, and I won't necessarily stop when someone struggles to talk. But when you agree with some of the beliefs that are racist and don't believe that
Mhm.
certain people's lives matter,
Yep.
if my life doesn't matter, you want to talk about it. And I'm
Yeah.
people who support in politics.
No.
And those, when it comes to the beliefs, why would I do anything about my life? Oh, you're cool for black person. That hurts. Or you're pretty for a black person.
Oh, yeah.
That hurts. Like, why would you say that?
Allie, are you hearing this?
Yes.
So
Okay.
you wait to get to know that
Well-
person before any of that happens, or I always tell you that I voted for somebody, with me.
No, that's not.
Do you know everybody in the world?
Right. Fair. This election was the most difficult that I've had in my lifetime because number one, for 4 years, Trump administration was in charge, and say what you will, it's indisputable that it was a very divisive presidency. It wasn't like he's saying, let's cross party lines, let's work together. It was a very divisive one, and it was very empowering for some groups that were very dangerous. And so more and more in the last few years, the political conversation wasn't all about politics, but race was wrapped up in there. Racial equality was wrapped up in there. And so, I mean, Jalen, I think that the points that you make are valid. And even when I was hearing what was said, part of me agreed with it. And I thought, well, but when you get into the racial issues, it becomes more complicated because I don't think it's as cut and dried.
I'm not trying to argue with anybody about this, but January 6th, if those would have been people that was like Charlie, just like me, with like any person of color,
Mhm.
how far do you think they would have gone? How many people would still be alive?
SWAT teams would have come in.
And a lot of those people who advocate for Blue Lives Matter, I'm trying to be a police officer. Blue Lives, we sign up for our lives in the if you look at some of the footage, some of them are even police officers. But that month ago, they were just saying, Blue Lives Matter. So I think that would be pretty cool if someone does.
Not to mention that at peaceful protests for people like George Floyd, they had people fully armed, ready to.
Yeah.
At
But
peaceful
a lot of them
protests.
weren't peaceful.
Yeah.
A lot of them were lighting buildings on fire and looting and stealing and.
Well, I do appreciate the conversation. I don't want this class about sex and marriage to get hijacked on racial issues are important. I don't want this class, we only have so much time, and I don't want us to go too far down that rabbit hole. So I do appreciate your thoughts on that. And there's truth. I think that everything in what you've said, there's a substantial amount of truth in it for sure. And I guess I would just cap it off by just saying that in my experience with my friends that believe differently than me, I just have continued to have a relationship with them. I can't do that if they try to shove things down my throat or belittle me, but in both cases, my friends were very respectful of me and continued to be respectful of me. So if there's a way that we can love one another, I think that's the best way to go. I don't know how we got to there from same-sex marriage. This is crazy.
That's how you were saying that, and I just thought like that's great, because like some people don't believe that. And I just think
It's on video. We'll be able to record, it'll be on YouTube soon. We can actually see how did we get from same-sex marriage to racial issues, right?
I didn't bring that up, I just thought that it was something to do that, because that's what I do.
But all right. Well, I found it to be interesting because I know that this area it is a geographic area that is very entrenched in conservative Christianity. And it doesn't mean that every person is, but a lot of those values are adopted by people. And so I have been a bit surprised that almost none of my classes in recent years have had a problem with, the morality of homosexuality.
I think this is how we started off too. We've always just gone up like, oh, you like this really cool, like, and I think back in the day, we were taught that was wrong, or like, maybe their parents thought it was wrong, so that's why they do it that way. There was kind of a stigma around it, like if you were gay, you would do. Cause I have like friends that has some like colleagues, and they're like, oh yeah, like they like I'm gay, they like will view me as like, they're like, if they did not, they were more like they'd be like, oh, they're like the ones who like go shopping and stuff, instead of like stereotypical. I think like that's like a lot of them do. It changed over time.
Okay. I'm not looking at my computer. What time is it? Anybody have the time? 7:26. Crap. What do I want to do? All right. I better go over some of the stuff that's in the book. Then I'm going to give you a brief break, and then we're going to watch the documentary. Yeah, I can, for sure.
Yeah, easier to go back to. Cause like I would remember something and I'd go back and see exactly what they said.
Okay.
If you just remember
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I can share it. I can share it with everybody. Allie, do you prefer to face the class, or you want me to turn you around?
It's completely up to you. It doesn't matter to me.
All right, I'll just leave you there then.
Okay.
All right. When we get to the book of what the Boss book has to say about sexual intimacy in marriage, there's a few things I wanted to bring up just so that you're prepared. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about just briefly is when we talked about natural law theory, when it comes to homosexuality, that is one theory that people have used natural law theory to argue that there's nothing wrong with being gay because it's natural, right? Like it's how someone was made by God. It's what they are naturally inclined towards. But on the other hand, you have people that are against homosexuality that say that it's unnatural. You know, it's coming from a heterosexual's point of view that, oh, well, it's not natural to like people of the same gender. But it is one that's used on both sides. Some people say, you know, I would use natural law to argue that there's nothing immoral about homosexuality because that's how God made somebody. But there are people that reject that notion. There are people that think that people that are gay choose that. And I don't care even if people do choose to be gay or bisexual or however I just don't care. But natural law theory is used by both sides of the argument for the morality of homosexuality. That's on the test, so that's why I bring that up. The sexual revolution, or prior to 1976, states could prohibit the sale of contraceptives. Can you imagine a world in which states prohibit the sale of contraceptives? I find that to be unbelievable, but prior to 1976, that could happen. The sexual revolution happened in the 1960s. Anybody watch Austin Powers? There's several of them that you can watch. They're hilarious, although they're a bit crude. But the sexual revolution began in the late 60s, and in the 60s, the sexual revolution helped discard the notion of sexual morality and instead urged people to free themselves from sexual guilt and shame and to freely enjoy the pleasure of sexuality. I want to paint a picture of how big of a deal the sexual revolution was in the 1960s. Has anybody watched a really old sitcom called I Love Lucy? If you haven't seen it, I encourage you. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Just watch an episode or two. I think they're only 30-minute episodes, but Lucille Ball was in it, and she was married to Ricky Ricardo, and it was great. It was a hilarious sitcom. It was a huge hit, like massive hit. There weren't a lot of sitcoms to choose from, but in that sitcom, I don't even know what years it came out, 40s, 50s, probably the 50s, I'm guessing. Maybe the 40s and 50s, I'm not sure. But in that, Ricky and Lucy were married. Guess where they slept? I think they had the same room, but they had beds on each side of the room. Isn't that crazy? And it was a big deal when I can't remember what the first sitcom was. Maybe it was even I Love Lucy or something. It might have been I can't remember what it was. There was some sitcom that showed a married couple with one bed. And that was a big freaking deal. So you think about how uptight Americans were and then the sexual revolution came, and it blew people's minds, because some of them were still stuck back in years before where you didn't even see a married couple sleeping in the same bed on a TV show. Then the 60s show up, and they're urging people to discard sexual guilt. And I'm guessing people probably had a lot of repressed sexual guilt for a long time, and they were ready. And so they're smoking weed, they're protesting Vietnam, and they're having sex. So that kind of gives you an idea of what happened there. Okay, so we talked about marriage. Oh, we never did talk about cheating, though, did we? All right, well, let's just get this one out of the way. Is cheating ever moral? Did you need more time to think about it? No, that was quick. So there's never any circumstances in which cheating is moral.
Like people might argue that like okay, say that one break up or something, but it's still, but it's because we know it's friends that hate each other about get along, and it does turn to each other. So like, there's genuinely no reason, like, if you're not happy, if it's not working.
Jalen? You would have rather he broken up than cheated on her. Okay. Yeah.
I'd be more hurt if I was cheated on than if somebody was straight up like, I don't wanna be with you anymore. Like, I would much rather have that and just like, somebody be completely honest with me, like, hey, this isn't working out, I'm feeling for you, or be with me more than me finding out that somebody's. It's like a whole new level of
Yeah.
breaking the trust, and it's like, it affects you, like,
In
you're
so many
like,
ways.
oh, what did I?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Jalen?
I got told when I was not like, I told him out on it, he said, you don't want to break up with me, you didn't want to hold up feelings. And I told him it was for prosecuting or not his, no, it wasn't, and he told him like, when you feel well, and I thought,
Or like, when
We-
my ex told me, he told me it was never meant to go that far, and I'm like, but if you're like even gonna entertain it and just like, cut it off.
Well, you are in luck because in our documentary, they do address a variety of issues surrounding the issue of cheating. So, but what ethical framework would you use to undergird your argument that cheating is never morally justified?
It's the one that says like something that's universal.
Which one is that? What ethical framework is Immanuel Kant known for?
Categorical imperative.
That's right, categorical imperative. It would fit very, very nicely, very snugly in categorical imperative because it's universal.
Universal. It's one of those.
And also it always has to be something that you have to you can't do stuff that infringes on the dignity of the human experience. I would say cheating infringes on the dignity of the human experience. I mean, it just does. So yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we took care of that one. All right. Let me get back to what the boss book had to say because I don't want us to go. I need us to get done on time. In the 1976 Defense of Marriage Act, the U.S. Congress did define a marriage as a legal union between one man and one woman. And this bill was signed by President Bill Clinton. Obviously, since that time, you know, same-sex marriages have been legal and happened every month. The Immanuel Kant defines marriage as the union of two persons of different sexes for the lifelong possession of each other's sexual attributes. The union of two persons of different sexes for the lifelong possession of each other's sexual attributes. Homosexuality was a term that was created in 1869, and it was used to reinforce that same-sex relationships are a deviation from the norm by Sigmund Freud. That was 1869. Think about that. Think about how long ago 1869 was. Then fast forward over a century to 1994. So over 100 years. It wasn't until 1994 that the AMA, the American Medical Association, revoked the disease model and its position that medical professionals should seek to change the sexual orientation of homosexuals. 1994. It was 1994. How How many of you were born in the 90s? Anybody? All right. You all were born in the 2000s? Oh my gosh. Wow.
I think mentally I was meant to be born in the 80s or something.
You were?
Yeah.
Exactly, that you
I
think.
feel like yeah, 80s, 90s. Yeah, no,
They-
it's out
they-
here.
80s and 90s were pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you had some great films like Back to the Future and stuff. How you can go wrong with that? Well, think about it. It wasn't until 1994 that the American Medical Association officially changed their position that if you're gay, you shouldn't have some kind of therapy to ungay you. That is, I think that's crazy. That's horrifying to me. Same-sex marriage is legal in the Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Canada, and the United States. In 2002, a Gallup poll, 38% of Americans considered homosexuality to be morally acceptable. In 6 years later, 58% of Americans still oppose same-sex marriage. In 2011, for the first time in history, 53% of Americans supported legalizing same-sex marriage. In the last few years, bunches and bunches of states, actually, I think isn't it legal to, aren't same-sex marriages legal in every state now? What's that? Yeah. Okay. What about Missouri? Is Missouri? Hey, just on a side note that has nothing to do with this class or test, when same-sex marriages became legal in the state of Iowa, I lived in Keokuk and I was a pastor, and Keokuk is the very southeast tip of Iowa, right? So you can come up from Missouri and you can come up from Illinois and bam, you know, that's the first place in Iowa you can get to.
Yeah, it says that same-sex marriages
Legal in all states. And so because I was strategically located in Keokuk, I got a call from the courthouse that they were getting all these people that wanted to come from Illinois and Missouri to Iowa, to Keokuk, and get married. And they wanted to know if I would do any of these weddings. So I did $10,000 worth of weddings in a 5-month period, which was amazing. And it was crazy. I was marrying people that had been together for 40 years. I was marrying people that had been together for 6 months. It was just, people were going nuts getting married. And I just tried to provide a way for them to have a good experience. And I think it worked out for most of them. All right. Let's see. These notes are in the file section too. So before the test, I encourage you to look over the notes. Even though almost half of Americans maintain it's immoral to have sex before marriage, 95% actually have sex before marriage, and this figure has remained steady since the 1950s, which raises the question of the effectiveness of sex education, which encourages teenagers to wait until marriage. Then we're going to take a look at what the philosophers say on marriage. Aristotle, who was a virtue ethicist, identified men as the stronger gender and identified the home as the domain of women. Aristotle thought morality was relevant for the public sphere, that is, the world of men. Augustine and Aquinas, two of the biggest influencers of the Catholic Church and the Western world, taught that sexual intercourse is for procreation only, and they identified all forms of sexuality for other purposes to be a sin against nature. Consequently, they condemned masturbation, contraception, prostitution, and homosexuality. Immanuel Kant, who championed the categorical imperative, wrote that because the sexual impulse treats the other as an object of one's enjoyment rather than as a person, I might argue with him, it is a debasement of our humanity and shameful. Only in marriage, where there is what he calls a unity of wills, can sexual intercourse be justified. Consequently, Kant also rejected masturbation, prostitution, and homosexuality. It wasn't until the end of the 18th century that Mary Wollstonecraft's a vindication of rights, the rights of women, that the idea emerged of marriage as a union of equals. She identified traditional marriage as prostitution at best and sexual slavery at worst. You know, one of the things that I did not bring up, and I want to correct that now, is when we talked about same-sex marriages, one of the things that I brought up, or even same-sex relationships, one of the things that I utilize to justify that is not only natural law theory, but also justice is fairness. Because in justice is fairness, we have the veil of ignorance that says that, you know, whatever's right for one group is right for another group. Whatever rights one group has, the other groups have. So if using justice as fairness and the veil of ignorance, if heterosexuals can choose who they want to date and who they want to have sex with and who they want to marry, then people that are not heterosexual should have the same rights. And that would be, you know, equality and justice. And I think that it fits very well when we talk about same-sex relationships. All right. 91% of Americans claim that it is morally wrong for a married person to have an affair. Dr. Shirley Glass, a Baltimore psychologist and infidelity researcher, estimates that 25% of wives and 44% of husbands have extramarital affairs. What do you think? 25% of women, wives, and 44% of men? Do you think that those numbers are accurate? What do you think, Charlie?
Unless they can survey every married couple, you know, it's not accurate.
What do you think is a closer estimation? If it's 44 for men, 25 for women, what would be more accurate?
I'd say probably around 33%
Okay,
for both genders.
33% for both. What do you all think?
I have something.
Say it, Allie.
So I watched this homicide show called Snapped, and normally the reason why someone gets killed is because they're having an extramarital affair. And I honestly see it in both parties. So I agree with Charlie. I think 33% for each would be a good balance because, I mean, heck, men can have affairs, but women can too. You can't just rule out one gender. So I think it's a good mix of both.
Okay, what do you think, Webb?
No, I agree. I think people from genders and
You don't think one is substantially more than the other?
No.
Okay.
Probably not.
Okay. What do you all think? What numbers would you give husbands and wives for cheating? You think those are good? You think those are accurate? Are you scared to think about it? It's hard to know, right? Yeah. I'm not a very good person to say that. I tend to be a pessimist, and I think that my gut tells me that Charlie's probably more accurate, but I don't know because working at a church, if there's cheating going on, I don't usually know about it. And if I do, it's really bad. You know, if pastor knows about it, then it's bad. So I don't know, but those are the numbers that they gave us. I don't have it in my notes, but it might be in the book, or it might be in that chapter. I'm not really sure. A study of college men found that 34% of men were inclined to rape, as evidenced by their acceptance of rape myths, low empathy for victims of rape, gender stereotypes about women, and the belief that interpersonal violence against women is acceptable. I'm sure this was from a number of years ago, but a survey in Ms. magazine reported that 1/4 of all college women are victims of rape or attempted rape. That includes statutory rape and marital rape. So, all right. Any questions about anything? All right. What time is it? 7:49. All right. Be back here at 8 o'clock, and we'll get our. I'm not going to go over the Bible stuff, but what I am going to do is I'm going to email you, or I'll probably share it from Dropbox, or not Dropbox, but Google Drive. I'm going to share the stuff about the Bible and what it says about sex and marriage. I'm going to share that entire PowerPoint with you, and I do want you to go through it. It really won't take you long to read through it. It would be much longer for me to tell you about it, okay? All right. Yeah. So be back at 8. Allie, I think that's going to be it. Do you want to hop off now?
Yeah, that's fine. I can hop off so that way you can access the documentary. I'll just watch it on my own time like we did for the Inside Death Row. And I'll
Okay.
just fill it out.
Did you see the email that I shared it with you?
Yes, you did. Or yes, I did. Sorry, not you did. I did. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being here tonight.
Of course. Thank you for letting me join via Zoom again. Hopefully I'll be in class next week, but we'll see how my tests go.
All right. Well, we will be hopeful, and whatever you need, we're happy to help.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.